Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And a juicy day on the timeline last night, most certainly, with the drama continuing between some of these pro players on exactly what should happen at the World Championship. Right now, 8 teams qualify. The top dogs are saying pretty much, look, we deserved our spot, we earned our spot for the World Championships. You can sit back and relax and watch chaps from home if you didn't deserve it, and watch, well, the real men come to play. Intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, this last Esports I thought was kind of crazy. In their winners finals match against Toronto, you guys might remember from this exact spot on Raid, he shot down a Hellstorm missile. Now he plays up against this Yoz guy in League play, and he does exactly the same thing to Arcitys himself. Arcitys calls in the Hellstorm, and it gets taken down. So I do wonder whether we'll see more players try this, because there were some players back in Black Ops 3 especially, this was used on a pretty regular basis. Former was pretty much well known at that time for shooting down Hellstorm missiles out of the sky. It's somewhat tough to do in this game, of course, a cruise missile is called in this time round, but it's still kind of crazy to see, to be honest. Maybe this is a meta that will start coming into play for the last couple of months of the game. Certainly wanted to mention this as well. It seems like some roster changes coming soon to the Thieves side. I guess we'll talk about this over the coming days, so only wanted to kind of brush over it today. But it seems like TJ is joining Wester. Now, no announcement from the Thieves or anything as to who's coming in his place, but yeah, TJ to Wester in place of Slacked on their side of things. So Saints, Hamza, TJ, and Method is their team. So seems like Thieves, maybe understandably, making it yet another roster change. Road to 100 roster moves, as quoted yesterday, certainly does continue. This is what Octane had to say after their past weekend. So Seattle had a good weekend, all things considered. They beat London, they beat Paris very handily indeed, before losing to OpTic Chicago, the better team. And of course, Seattle started from losers, so it was always going to be a tough time. One thing I didn't mention when we talked about this yesterday is the fact that this season, though, online hasn't really been too much of an issue. Last season, there were so many problems, so many complaints, especially from Slasher and the guys in California, and understandably so, because in California last season in LA, there were like no servers anywhere near that you could possibly use that weren't in California, and therefore like the other team's just going to veto that server, and therefore you have to play on something with a severe disadvantage. Now that was a massive concern. The CDL this season I think have done a great job in general, putting way more servers out. How many series have we had where the teams are actually complaining about the online environment? It's obviously teams complain about online, and still understandably so, but the server differential really hasn't been too much of a big deal, to be honest. And that was the thing last season, the fact that yes, we went to online in the middle of the season, it wasn't really set up perfectly, and therefore they were like, alright, yeah, bit of inconsistencies, let's just let all the team come to the World Championships. This year, there's only really been a couple of cases, for example, the OpTic versus FaZe series, you guys may well remember, with the Atlanta server versus the St. Louis server, that was in discussion at the time. The CDL also this year doesn't do the whole like letting the teams veto the servers thing. They just look at all the pings for the players and decide where the best server is going to be, and most of the time they're probably on 30, 40 ping, nothing too serious, to be honest. So all things considered, online this year has been much better than I think it was last year, and you could certainly argue the fact that yes, we've gone back to LAN, how many different results did we realistically see? Now Octane I think is an individually feels so much better, and he was kind of saying here in the video maybe that we talked about yesterday that maybe he like it is somewhat of a mental thing, the fact that when he goes back to LAN he just feels like he's going to be absolutely frying, and therefore he is to some degree. But still, I think a lot of people could argue that yes, hang on a second, like just be good online, and maybe there's not actually too much difference this year, and the best teams online have certainly still been the best teams on LAN, because as you can see in the point standings right here, you pretty much see the teams at the top 8, with exception of Subliners and OpTic being flipped. These were the top 4 teams of the event in the top 4 of the standings right now, so it's not overly a surprise, to be honest, what we have seen this past weekend. Surge Standy are in, well, joint 11th actually right now, so technically not 12th, even though kind of still are 12th, but we've got 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, of course, Gorillas, Paris Legion, Ravens, and the Seattle Surge down here in the bottom 4 of the league, and they're going to have a very tough time making the World Championships as it stands at the present time. But as Clayster says, he's not necessarily too happy with it, or doesn't necessarily agree with Octane's proposal that all the teams should get to go to the World Championship. I mean, I'm all for better competition, he says, but if you cannot be better than 33% of your league to make it to playoffs, that is straight up on you, right? Like, just actually get good at the game and be better as a team, and this is really the concern to me. I think TacticalRab Academy doesn't do it right here. These people with 5 wins all season want to turn up to champs to play 1 game and lose. The ego of these people after winning 1 series against London on LAN. So, well, it's kind of funny stuff. I guess it makes a fair point in a sense, right? The fact that, yes, if all these bottom 4 teams were allowed to go to the champs, like, at the end of the day, they would still be in this situation, probably, where they're just in losers, and if they lose 1 series, they're out. So it's almost like, what's the point in a way? Because if you get, like, a London or whatever that go to champs, yes, they might win 1 series, they might win 2 series, but eventually they're going to fall out of the tourney, and you're never going to see, like, a crazy run for those teams. It's just never going to happen, realistically, and therefore, like, you know, what's the point of even getting them to go? You could argue that. You've also got to think about the fact that, like, what does the bracket actually look like in that case? We'll have a look at some proposals here in a second for how to make it work, but with 12 12 teams, it is kind of awkward. I do kind of wish in a way, like Champs back in the day was so good, kind of. I did have some gripes with the Champs format a few years ago, like the official COD Champs format. This really is more of playoffs, right? Like as I talked about yesterday, Champs being like a celebration of COD in a way. It's kind of less of that because it's just like you get the top teams there. I get it. It's how American sports work, understandably so. And as Accuracy says, my biggest gripe with it is 4 teams being eliminated and 2 teams starting in losers. If 4 are automatically gone, I don't think the other 2 should start in losers. This is actually really interesting because I don't think there's been an announcement yet to at least the public as to what the format is for Champs. But Accuracy is like the bottom 2 teams, I imagine in the standings, start in losers. And well, I think like the top 2 teams get a bye, then I guess like a couple of other teams get a bye or something like that. Kind of strange. I'm not sure exactly what the format is going to be. But if he's correct that the bottom 2 teams get start in losers, like that is actually really strange to me. I thought that all these teams that qualify for Champs or the playoffs or whatever you exactly want to describe it as get to start in the winners bracket, and maybe like FaZe or Empire or whoever's at the top gets some sort of bye in the bracket. It's just kind of awkward to make a bracket work with with 12 teams, and maybe you just find a way to chuck those teams down there as losers. But if like Thieves and Mutineers on current standings are starting in losers at Champs, like they just lose one series and they're out, I think that's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. If you've actually made it to qualify and you've still basically got no chance because you're going to have to play one series and eventually you're going to play some of the top dogs that drop down from the losers side. So really interesting stuff. I mean, yeah, this is what Accuracy says, of course, right here, and Brian Saint says, and realistically, all that would incentivize, which is kind of a fair point, the bottom 4 teams just to scrap their entire roster, right? Because they've got no incentive to play for anything next season going forwards, so why not just scrap the entire roster? And you know you're making Champs regardless, therefore let's just try and find something that's going to work, and maybe that incentivizes the wrong plays in that sense. As Clay does say though, want to make it clear, nowhere did I say the format was okay, or that I thought it was good. What I do think is that the CDL has done the best job at making a 12-team league feed into an 8-team bracket where the entire season matters. That being said, still not a fan of the format in its entirety. This was kind of funny from Crimsix, because we talked about it in yesterday's video, let all 12 teams compete at Champs at COD League. Then he says, psych, should have brought a Netgear Nighthawk, you absolutely awful players. And of course, you know, one of these routers, gaming routers, which is supposed to help you play better. I don't really know any of the science on whether it actually does or not. I think a lot of the players have stuff like this and helps their internet along those lines. So kind of funny that Clayster comes out and then Crimsix comes out with the following to say he was trolling all along. As Attach says, he comes up with an idea, or maybe you can get some of the challengers teams there as well to kind of emulate what we used to have at COD Champs in the past. My only gripe with the old format of Champs, because we looked at it yesterday, the fact that it was an absolute gauntlet. You'd have 32 teams go, 8 groups of 4, the top 2 of each group get out into the brackets, but I did kind of, my gripe was really that the bottom 2 teams in every group just went out immediately, because you could go 2-1 in your group and get 3rd place on a tiebreaker and then just go out of the tournament, which is what happened to OpTic in 2018, you guys might remember, when they placed top 24. This is like a bracket that JCap says, but he's like, look, there's no way a 12-team bracket can ever work properly, so maybe you don't even bother getting these other teams into the league, because as you can see right here, this is one way you could do it. You can give the top 4 teams a bye, then you can get OpTic to play like Octane and Go, for example, and have it work like this. I think there's also some other proposals that people have been giving, but I'm not 100% sure if the CDL want to go down this route, to be honest, because they haven't done so far. And in the tweet they did talking about the standings a few days ago, they were like, yeah, the Champs picture is getting very clear right now, so I don't think they're going to change anything, but certainly the big discussion point of these last couple of days. This is something I also wanted to mention I thought was very interesting indeed with regard to 8 right now, and Simp has a few words to say on it, because for the last couple of months we've been talking about, wow, why aren't the pros practicing enough, especially these lower tier squads that are getting fried every single day? Why are they not hopping on and playing a load of 8 series to actually keep themselves warm and get some additional practice? Because of course team scrims is the best practice you're going to get, but after that 8 is usually the way to go. You get in a lobby with 8 players, you choose a couple of captains, they pick the players they want to play with, and then okay, you get into the lobby, usually you put up a bit of cash, I'm not sure you're allowed to do that anymore, and still you play some series, you get some practice in, rather than just playing scrims and getting off for the night. That seems to be what's happening nowadays, as Parasite's talking about right here, and this is well, what Parasite says in reply, it helps with taking gunfights, micro positioning, spawn reading, split spawn reading, and comms if you want to work on them, so that's some of the benefits of playing 8, but as Simp says, 8 gives you straight up bad tendencies. This is why none of the FaZe guys seem to play 8 anymore, and one of the reasons why it seems to be dead at the pro level. A lot of people would put that down to the fact that teams actually, or players are just trying to maintain their spots, not really trying to improve, not about the grind as they were back in the day. But Sim's like, look, actually playing 8 give you, well, it makes you worse at the game, because you try and practice whatever you want. If your teammates are just there to have fun and shoot their guns, it's pointless, which is every single 8 series. But as Slasher says, he doesn't agree. You're right to an extent, but 8's are the second best form of practice. It helps more than it hurts, and bottom team should not be playing scrims and getting off every single day. As Doug says, though, I think 2v2 hardpoints with your team are better practice than 8. So, well, he certainly doesn't agree with these situations, but I'm not sure people necessarily necessarily agree with Doug, because as Trey says, I don't even know if this is a troll or just a bad tweet. Not trolling. 2v2 hardpoint is definitely not better practice than 8, says Slasher. I do remember some discussion about like the Splice team. I think it was when Shotzzy was on the Splice team in Halo, sorry. And when they used to play against each other, they would play 2v2s in Halo rather than practice the other teams. Because if they played other teams in team scrims, they would just make other teams better. So to improve, they would just play 2v2 against themselves, which is kind of crazy. And I don't know if teams are going to go down that route here, but well, clearly Censor seems to think it's a pretty good idea. Yeah, you know, 2v2 hardpoint is definitely not better practice. You're tripping for sure. And well, here's Doug back in the day in the complexity jersey. And well, you need to get the sleeves off that, I think, if you want this guy to fry. Speaking of teams that are frying, this I thought was kind of crazy. Now, of course, the bracket today, the format today is different to what it was back in the day. So you can see right here, for Freako Impact, then for Complexity, then for OpTic Gaming as it was at the time, only 3 teams have won 3 events in a row since all the way back in 2013. Freako Impact being one of them back in Black Ops 2, then Complexity right at the end of the Black Ops 2 title into the start of Ghost, and then OpTic Gaming did it a couple of times during the Black Ops 3 season and Advanced Warfare, a couple of times in Advanced Warfare, and then during the Black Ops 3 season as well. So these were kind of, these are somewhat considered the dynasties. I mean, Complexity and OpTic, of course, the big dynasties, and some people talked about Freako as well, but they were only really about for a few events that did particularly well. But FaZe can cement their legacy if they manage to win Stage 5 of the CDL, because they won Stage 3, they won Stage 4. If they win Stage 5, they you know, joined this tally up right here and kind of joined some legendary Call of Duty names, to be honest. Now, very interesting, of course, because the format right now does, well, lend itself to this, where you only have to do particularly well in groups, then you just have to win 3 series of the major to win the entire thing if you're FaZe. Not quite the same as the Gauntlet. These teams usually have to go through to win these events, many of them in a row, but at the same time, FaZe have earned their, you know, passes in the brackets, and they still have to beat the best teams of the game every single time. So I think if they do manage to win Stage 5 as well, they definitely have earned their spot at that point on this prestigious list throughout Call of Duty history. But intriguing your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. Really upset the YouTube algorithm that you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and have grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.